Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Nomad Experts podcast by Commute. Today, we're going to answer the question, which types of companies hire digital nomads? We want to talk about this because we've had this written into us as a question through hello@beachcommute.com, and we've also had that question asked to us live in Q&A sessions. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through 5 specific traits within organizations that you should look for, and we're going to give you some examples of what those traits look like as you're going through and reviewing companies on your own. So you get a sense of what it is that you can look for, and you get either a green flag or a red flag from companies. And this is the result of us going through tens of thousands of these companies and bleary-eyed looking at About Us pages and career pages. So we've got a pretty good sense of the things that you should look for. Before we get into that, Marissa, you are packing your bags. Where are you headed?
Yes, I am. You and I have both been complacent for a little bit, recharging our batteries back home. I've actually been traveling here and there. I've been in Mexico. I just got back from some travels within the States. I was just in Charleston, South Carolina, visiting some family, and I'm heading to France 2 days from now. I'll be there for a little while in the south of France in Saint-Tropez. It's been probably for maybe 6, 7, 8 years, something like that, since I have been to France, I think. So I've been in this area nearby, but it's been a while since I've been there. So we'll see. It's kind of beachy. Europe's not normally my thing, but
Very
I'm going
off-brand
there.
for you.
Very off-brand. I'm going there. My partner's family, he's from France. His family's there. So going to visit some family there. And yeah, otherwise, France is not normally my thing. Europe is not normally my thing. But I will be there for a little while and excited that I can bring my work with me. Work from there. It's by the ocean. So as far as Europe goes, I didn't dislike the south of France last time I was there. So I'm hoping.
Rave review. I didn't dislike it. Marissa texted me the other day. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go to France next week. Like, do you hit your head? What happened?
You were just like, what?
Yeah, I just all right, we'll talk about it next week. I got too many questions.
Too many questions. Why am I going to Europe? So
Way
that is
off-brand.
why. Very off-brand. I'll be there for a little while. So I'm excited to report back. If you're not already on our email list, check out beachcommute.com/email. I'll always send pictures from my travels there. And I think it is really beautiful. That much I can say. And I'm excited to explore some new places. A lot of people who speak French. So I feel like that's like half it. Being there with people who are a little bit local. That's always fun. And yeah, we'll see. So hitting the road again, traveling across the ocean. It's been a while since I guess I kind of did going to Mexico, but it's technically still part of this land.
You
but,
crossed
yeah.
a gulf. It counts.
I crossed
you
a
crossed
gulf.
a gulf.
Does that
It's
count?
A big gulf. Yeah, sure. The
I love
Gulf of Mexico.
Exactly. Yeah. So Mexico, France, got some travels with me, and then back to some U.S. travels again for weddings and events like that. So I'm a little bit all over. I feel like this year has been pretty different for you and I both. Just more time at home. After 8 years of traveling, we're both a little bit tired, but still love this life, still love the options, still love the flexibility, being able to go whenever, wherever, and we still dabble. We're still going. So, and you're still California. How's it going there?
Yeah, same. I've been doing a little bit of U.S. travel too. I was in Seattle, Arizona, Boston, heading to Florida in a couple weeks for a week off. And then I think up to Rhode Island. So yeah, just kind of local stuff for the most part. Yeah, bouncing around, bring my laptop with me. And
yeah,
last year was, last 18 months, it was just nonstop travel. Now it's just it's good. I mean, I can do this from the home office. I can decide to go to anywhere. It's the same thing. Nothing changes. I'm just charging the batteries.
Yeah, it is still nice, even within your home country, if you want to bounce around. I was in Charleston last week. I was in North Georgia before that. I'm going to New York soon. So wherever you are, it's you don't always have to go abroad. You can travel within your own country or go abroad. But I think just having that flexibility. So with that, excited to talk about this question of these 5 traits to look for of what types of companies. And you mentioned someone wrote this in to us. We had a Q&A session with some of our Anywhere Atlas members a couple weeks ago where somebody asked this question of what types of companies are really hiring digital nomads, or what types of companies should we be looking for that hire, where you can really work from anywhere. And I know when I tell people about what we do, when people are like, what do you do for work? And I try to explain this to them. They always say, you hire for a certain industry. Are you headhunting. And I'm like, no, it's literally sharing all types. Like there's so many companies, so many industries, but there definitely are some most common types of companies and traits to look for. So if you have been wanting to get that remote job so you can work from anywhere, whether it's your own country or across the oceans, wherever you want to be, these are some things that you can look for and start to think about as you go. So you want to kick it off, Jeff, with number one?
Yeah. So number one, this is the question that was asked in the Q&A, is what is the typical company size that hires digital nomads or lets you work from anywhere? And this is really interesting because it can go either way, but I think the point of this conversation is for us to kind of create like this archetype, create this it's like stereotypical company and what it generally looks like. And from what I've seen, what I've experienced, companies tend to be on the smaller side that hire digital nomads. And when I say smaller size, I'd say like up to my organization was like a couple hundred employees or so. I've seen them also go larger than that. And I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on the why. But the first thing that comes to my mind is smaller organizations tend to be a little bit more nimble. Like they're able to pivot in different directions a lot faster. I think of enterprises, large corporations, it's like an oil tanker. It's just enormous. They've got so much momentum, they've got so much inertia, and they have to change their direction like a year before they want to actually move somewhere. And it just takes so much buy-in from so many different people and so many process changes. Whereas you've got like a small startup, it's like 20 people. Do you want to go remote? Yeah, good, done. And it's like, all right, you don't have to create a new structural change within HR. You don't have to create these process documents and all this crap. It's just they're really, really quick and easy to move left and right. So what's been your experience in looking at these companies?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on like the cause and effect of like why that is, in addition to what you said. But I would say if I think about the company size, I would say it definitely goes bigger than a couple hundred. But if you look at like every company that we have inside of our Anywhere Atlas, there's hundreds of them in there. I would say definitely, we'll have to like do some actual like data on this, but it seems like that kind of 50 to 100, 200, 300 range is probably like the most common, as you were talking about. But there are some that I think have several thousand people. It's not like only tiny little companies. There might be a couple that are 1,000, 2,000 people as well. But definitely I would say that the most common ones, like you said, are a little bit smaller, more nimble. They're not these huge companies that have big HR policies and like, crazy about tax, where you're living and all of this stuff. And I think this kind of bleeds into number two. So I think it's kind of hard to talk about one without talking about the other. So I'm going to say number two and say why they kind of go hand in hand. So the second sort of trait that we look for is we look at the age of the company. So I would say more often than not, the companies that we have inside the Anywhere Atlas that truly let you work from anywhere are newer, just newer. It doesn't mean they're like 6 months old. Like I think a lot of people have this fear of, if I'm going to work for a company that lets me work from anywhere, they're brand new, they're some weird startup, they're going to go under. Some of these companies have been around for, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years. But mostly
we're talking like not IBM, right? Like
exactly, not IBM.
Hasn't been around for 90 years of institutional beliefs. Yeah,
exactly. Like I used to work at Pepsi, like not your Pepsis, not your Googles, not your Facebooks, like not the companies. And those actually, it's like those seem, Facebook, Google seems like they should be like new tech companies, but they've been around for a while now. So I think when I look at the cause and effect of like the company's size, as a company's newer, it's small to start and then it grows, as it's been around for a while. So to kind of tie it back to number one again, if you look at the cause and effect, I think partially some of those companies that have been around for a while, like you said, are smaller and nimble and can just decide like, times have changed. We want to change our policy and become remote. But I think also a lot of newer companies happen to be smaller, and those newer companies, the ones that maybe like had the option to start fully remote, to start fully asynchronously, to start as like this option, or maybe if it started in COVID, that was a long time ago now, as we got 3-4 years ago, and maybe those companies started that way and never changed, right? So if I think about some of the newer companies are smaller just because they're newer, and those newer companies had the option to be remote companies from the get-go. Whereas, if you look 15 years ago, so you really couldn't run a business so remotely the way you can. And I think a lot of those companies started as in-person companies and just haven't changed as much. So to kind of, I would say, wrap up number 1 and 2, and then we'll keep moving on to 3, 4, and 5, is smaller-ish companies, again, it doesn't mean it's only 4 people, but like 50 to 100, 200, 300, maybe 1,000, like those are going to be your more often than not, they're going to be that size if they are fully remote, like, and really letting you travel anywhere. And then the newer companies. So again, not the like giant behemoth companies that have been around for like, ages and ages and ages. But I don't know if you want to, I would love your thoughts as well on if you think about like the age of a company. Do you have any more thoughts on just like the trends of newer companies versus those companies that have been around for a while and maybe haven't transitioned?
Well, I do agree that the two things are related. Company size, age of company, they do play on one another quite a bit. When you think of company size, it's just think about it from just like the natural evolution of a company as it gets bigger. Like as companies get bigger, they start to standardize things way more. Like they want efficiency. They want everything kind of the same in a tight little box. Whereas if you're working for a smaller company, like they're very much like everything is out of the box, not standardized. It's like, okay, just work it out. And as it grows, you get kind of like inflated, a little bit top heavy, middle management, C-suite. You start looking at, we're talking about the size of the company, the C-suite gets a little bigger. The age of the C-suite gets a little higher, right?
That's true.
And the thinking starts to change. I don't want to step on our bullet point number 5 with this because we will get to that. But a good example of this happening is look at Zoom. Okay, so when was Zoom founded? Within the last 20 years, I'm sure, right? They are now at 8,500 employees, and they recently implemented a return to office mandate for anybody living within 50 miles of a headquarters. And oddly enough, the person they interviewed was C-suite, head of HR. And they asked this person, how's it going? And the person said, this guy living in Texas said, oh, it's going great. Everybody loves it. And they said, well, how's it working for you, this return office? He's, I don't go to the office. I can do my job from home. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, exactly. So you've got a little bit of a juxtaposition here with the C-suite and then the people that work under them. So, and that tends to happen to get the stratification of like power within an organization as it gets bigger, right?
Yeah.
Whereas small, it's like, I know everybody's faces, I relate to them personally, and it's like, yeah, I trust you, go work from anywhere. But when there's that separation, you got this big stratification of power. It's just kind of like faceless employees. It's like, nah, I don't want you to, I don't trust these faceless people. Let's bring them back into office.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it kind of like, it's a little bit more personal when it's smaller. There's a little bit more understanding of human beings as opposed to just numbers. And that's not to step all over big organizations because there's a lot of very good ones out there. But I think it's just, as they get bigger, you stop understanding people as much and start seeing it as a faceless.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
A family member recently as well who works for Delta. And they said, like, they're making people, it's kind of like day by day. It's like, it was fully remote, like during when no one could go into an office. And then it was hybrid of like, okay, you have to go in 2 days a week. And then she said, now it's 3 days a week. And she's like, I'm sure it's going to be 5 days a week in the office again. Like, younger employees don't want to do that anymore. So I think companies will start losing talent, but maybe they're okay with that. And, like these bigger companies it's like they have these ideas and it is what it is. So yeah, I guess the theme of these two so far, again, is look for a little bit smaller companies. And I know actually when we've done some coaching and programs, here at Beach Commute, we have a lot of people who are looking for prestigious companies. They want to work for companies that feel like they are real companies, that they're not going to get let go. They've been around for a while, that they're, again, prestigious to work for, to have, that name on your resume. But if you are looking for this, I always ask clients, like, what's more important to you, to have this like prestigious company or to have this freedom to work from anywhere in the world? So the prestigious companies typically tend to be ones that are bigger. They've been around for a long time because people have heard of them. They're known brand names. But I would encourage you, if you're listening to this and you want the freedom to work from anywhere, start to think outside the box. We've got some really epic companies inside the Anywhere Atlas, which is our database of all the companies that we have hand research found over the years through tens of thousands of companies, as Jeff said. And these are the companies that let you work from anywhere. And they're cool. Like, a lot of them, if you look at it, like, you've probably never heard of them before. Your friends aren't going to know it. But I know for me, when I graduated from college, like, that was important. I worked for Pepsi. I wanted to work for a big, like, well-known company. But like nothing was worth the freedom, for me and probably you if you're listening to this, if you value freedom and working from anywhere and being anywhere in the world you want, like I would encourage you to think outside the box for some of these really cool, like they're really awesome companies. And we can talk about some examples, but they're a little bit smaller. They're a little bit less well-known. They're a little bit newer, but they're still like legitimate companies. And they've been around for, anywhere 5, 10, 15 years as well. So it's not like they're going to go under tomorrow. And I think that's important to know because a lot of people somehow equate like they're like these flimsy, faulty companies that like aren't going to be good to work for. But a lot of them have benefits and like great cultures and all of this stuff. So yeah, that's our soapbox talk of of the first two. Should we go on to number 3?
Yeah, let's do number 3. There's another one of the most commonly asked questions,
Yeah.
like what industry should I be in?
Yes.
And this one's kind of interesting because there are more common industries that just kind of lend themselves well to being a digital nomad and hiring digital nomads.
Yeah.
But I've seen, like, as you go through the Anywhere Atlas, it's kind of across the board.
Yeah.
It's more, I think it actually fits more into, like, what's the culture of the company a little bit more than it actually fits into what kind of industry, because there are so many different roles in surprising industries that you can do any, like, if you really think about it, any job that can be done at a laptop within any industry can be done pretty much anywhere, right? Unless it requires some sort of physical presence to do something manual. A lot of what you can do can be anywhere. But that said, why don't we go through some of the most common ones so that we get just kind of an idea. And I'm actually using the Anywhere Atlas to help guide this conversation right now.
Yeah.
As we go through this, we'll see popping up the most often software development, which is kind of a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you would expect that. A lot of the requirements of people that work from software development, not IT, but, developers, programmers, website builders, all of that kind of stuff. And that's a perfect job for a digital nomad.
You're talking about software development companies?
Yes, companies.
Yeah,
and
like
people
companies that have created
within
software and then people who are working. So think about companies that have created a software are a big one that we always see tons of fully remote jobs.
And within those companies, there's a ton of different roles, like software development companies that have developed some sort of software. They also need marketers. They also need financial analysts. They need
accounting.
HR.
Yes.
They need all that. They need all that stuff. And I think it's just kind of like as part of being a software company, I think there's just kind of a culture that comes with that, like a mindset. Software. You're already very, very just laptop oriented, production oriented, as opposed to like in person. These people just kind of naturally fit nicely into this lifestyle anyways, just by the nature of the work that they were doing, right?
Yeah. What else comes up most commonly?
Yeah, let's pop through some of the other ones here. Marketing and advertising pops up in the Anywhere Atlas. That's the background I came from, and that actually makes sense, especially if you're coming from the agency side in marketing and advertising. You're going to be working with clients, doing exclusively Zoom calls, Google Meet calls. Most of marketing advertising at this point is just digital marketing and advertising anyways. A lot of college kids coming out of school are like, I'm going to do marketing advertising. And I looked through the textbook recently just out of curiosity to see what they're teaching now. And it's like, still doing like billboard advertising, direct mail advertising, branding. And there was half of a chapter out of 22 chapters on digital marketing. I'm like, all of you are going to be coming out of school doing digital marketing.
It's crazy.
It's wild. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, when you look at this marketing industry, most of what you're going to be doing is going to be digital marketing. And that lends itself really well to digital nomad lifestyles.
Yeah.
What else we got here? Financial, which is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
So help me out here. Like when you think of financial,
I feel like it's not like when someone just to me says like a financial company, I think of my days when I was like in college and people were recruiting for finance, which was like at banks, people in iBanking, people you think about in New York on Wall Street, you think about the big banks of working at like Chase or Bank of America. These are very US focused, but any sort of like bank financial systems, mergers and acquisitions, like that's what I think of like very traditional finance. But the newer ones that we're seeing, if you think about more, it's kind of like more techie finance. So fintech, if you will. Fintech.
Yeah,
I know. That's a little buzzword. Fintech, which is like financial technology. I think about companies and like PayPal or Wise are just good examples. Revolut, I don't know necessarily like those are not fully remote, but like newer kind of like apps and software and systems and online banking, online tools to help, maybe manage your finances or track finances. So there's kind of like in the finance industry, but it's not your very typical like clunky old school banks. So
like you would think, this big institution that's been around
yes, those are not
for 125 years. Yeah, you're not likely.
those
Here's a good example.
Yeah.
Just pulling one out of the Anywhere Atlas. Sardine AI. Great name.
Okay.
A little outside the box here. Sardine provides state-of-the-art fraud prevention and compliance solutions for fintech companies.
Cool.
So they're a solution for fintech. Using advanced analytics and machine learning, they help businesses spot financial crimes, ensuring secure and compliant transactions in today's digital world. We gave them 3 out of 5 umbrellas in the Anywhere Atlas. Yeah, that's a good one. They've got just a couple of things in here.
That's a
generous
great
compensation,
example.
Remote first culture, flexible time off. They cover health insurance, dental, vision coverage, annual learning stipend. They pay you to learn, and a one-time stipend for all of your office stuff for where you're traveling or you're working at home.
Yeah.
That's a great example.
That's
financial
a perfect example.
Company that takes care of their employees. So
yeah.
So
that,
you've got
and then
to
I think
reframe
reframe what it means by finance. And then on top, to kind of like go into that, there's a lot of tech and IT companies on the Anywhere Atlas as well. And I think that those are similar as well. When you think about tech, it doesn't have, I think there actually are a lot of like crypto, blockchain companies that we see that are hiring remote. There's a ton of those. So if that's something you're into, like you're got the gold stars there, and that's brand new. So it makes sense with that industry because it didn't really exist before, like non-remote things existed. There's also, just think about any sort of like apps, software you use, different like things that are happening in the back end of stuff that you probably don't even know exists. Like these are the companies that we're finding. So don't be afraid if you're not a techie person. Again, as Jeff said in the beginning, like these companies also need project managers and copywriters and social media managers and accountants and HR and anything just any company needs, but they happen to be in that more sort of like techie industry. And again, it makes sense to me as that sort of like cause and effect of like those are just going to be naturally newer companies as, technology advances, as AI advances, as apps advance. Like those are by nature going to be newer companies that people have created in this newer world and therefore don't have the old clunky non-remote vibes and maybe not gigantic companies yet. So again, there's sort of themes with all of these and they blend together for reasons. But yeah, those are some of the general, just like if we had to answer, those are some of the more popular industries. But I know several people I was with this weekend, I was with some brand new strangers who were asking me what I did. And I was telling Jeff, like anytime I say like what I do, people are like, oh, is it like a certain industry you're recruiting for? I think a lot of people think, oh, you must be just like finding software engineering roles or like, I don't know, do you only help IT managers find jobs or whatever it is? And it's like across the board, it's any industry. Like you can find fully remote companies in pet care and crypto and like Jess said, marketing and like literally anything. You could probably find someone that helps people like plant flowers and know what to plant in their garden. I don't know. Like you can, like any industry you can think of is not like off limits for this. And I think that's really important to know. So there's going to be some more common ones naturally by just the age of the company and what people are working on and the nature of the industry they're in. And there are more common ones, but don't let that deter you. Like if you love sports, if you love cooking, if you love anything, like there's going to be fully remote companies in that industry as well.
Do you think there's any companies that are a little bit slow to react? Can you think of anything generalizing that are a little bit you would consider behind the curve when it comes to this moving to fully remote work?
I think it's less about the industry and more about those first two factors that we talked about, which is the size, the age of the company. It's really like the mindset of the founder. Like, have they been in? I think for a lot of people, we've talked about this a ton on the podcast, is if there was companies that were remote for a while, were like in office, just a fully quote normal, what we think about is just everyone's in the office every day, getting to know people, having meetings in the coffee room, chatting with people in the hallway. Jeff said hell. I would agree. I think a lot of people just have this mindset like that is how we started and that is what is best, right? Like there's still so much that people don't understand of, like, if you let people work fully remotely, you miss out on the coffee chats and you miss out on the creativity and the drive by your desk and whatever. So I think to me, it's really like just an older mentality. And it's funny, even I was talking to somebody this weekend who's a little bit older when I was talking about what I did. And she was like, I just don't agree. Like, for younger people, they need to be in the office. They need to meet new people. And yes, there's a benefit in some ways. But if a company starts out fully remote, like, I just think, to me, I value having this freedom, having this fully remote nature more than meeting higher up people in a company. And like, you might miss out on stuff like that. But I think, so back to your question, I don't think that there's like a certain industry that is more or less likely. I mean, I do think more that the techie companies are going to be more likely just because the nature of their products and who they are and how they're thinking. But I don't think there's like one industry aside from people who are very like, if you're like a chiropractor or like if you're mowing lawns, like those are going to be in person still. But anywhere in the middle, I think any industry is like up for grabs. It just depends on the mindset of who started the company, who are the executives, how long has it been around for?
I agree. I was just curious. I couldn't think of anything either.
It's a great question.
In my head, I'm thinking there's got to be some industries that are pushing ahead of others. But you're right. It has more to do with the company culture, which is dictated by the size, the age, and then the owners, obviously.
Exactly. So before we hop on to number 4, if you're not yet on our email list, check out beachcommute.com/email to get on. Each week, we send out some really awesome emails. We send out info about the podcast. We also send a list of all different job titles, different salaries that people are hiring for that we're finding. So if you're new to this or you're thinking you want to find a remote job, you'd love this freedom, you're learning about these types of companies, but you're not quite sure like what roles are right for you and what companies and how do you find these, hop on our email list. You will absolutely learn so much. You will get a lot of great examples and start to learn what's right for you. So check out beachcommute.com/email for that. And with that, Jeff, on to number 4. What is number 4?
Number 4 are the most common types of jobs that people get from companies at an organization. We've gone through this in quite a bit of detail in previous. I don't have it handy. I always have it handy. I always have the episode number handy, but we've done this quite a few times. You search through our podcast, the top jobs that people typically work as digital nomads, and we can pretty much just spout these off the top of our head. I'm just going to rattle through a few that come to mind first for me. We've talked about this earlier. Developers includes software developers, website developers, back-end website developers, app creators, developers, anybody that's working that
or
deep
anything
in
with the word engineer in it, basically. Software engineers, back-end, front-end engineers, all of those. There's 100%. Tons of them.
Yeah, that lends itself perfectly to digital nomad lifestyle. It's low internet requirements, usually few meetings.
Yeah.
Usually they don't care to see the developer in the meetings or in person. It's just get the thing built. Just build it.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't require any location requirement. Also, marketing comes to mind quite a bit, specifically digital marketing. And within that, you've got a whole spread of people that work in marketing. You've got people that work in ads. So like Facebook ads, Google ads, all that kind of stuff. SEO even. You got people that work in branding. You've got people that work on social media teams. Writing teams also would include in the marketing aspect too. I don't know, what else can you think of?
Yeah, I've also got different project. Do you mean within marketing or in general?
Oh, marketing, and then just go off from there.
Yeah, so also there's some other ones as well. So many within marketing. You've also got project managers, HR, different assistants. You've got accounting. Really any job. It seems silly, but like almost any job you can think of at any typical company, you're going to find in these remote ways. At any typical sort of like office company, right? You're going to find these as well. So I would say if you happen to love like the software engineering and coding and backend and all of that, like go run for it. There are a million jobs for you, but don't let that hold you back. If you're like, I'm not a software engineer, I'm not sitting there coding, like that's not me, that's not Jeff, that is not, no. It is a lot of our digital nomad friends, but there are so many other people as well. So even though these are the most common ones, again, there's like marketing, HR, accounting, project management, writer, sorts of things within marketing, recruiting.
Yeah.
Basically, I really truly believe almost in any industry you can think of, you can do remotely. So as long as you are working from a laptop or your phone, different sales roles. We even saw in one of the Anywhere Atlas emails we sent out last week, there was a chief hype officer, which was like my favorite title I've ever seen.
The hell is that?
I think it's like, I don't know, like that's the point. It's like you can do anything. But I think it was sort of
That's
like
great.
a marketing, sort of HR, like I don't know, like
Sounds like it.
culture. Yeah, which I was like, that's amazing. So again,
Cool.
you can find any type of role. Again, aside from if you are, I don't know why mowing lawns is in my head today, chiropractors in my head today.
Somebody mowing the
Normally,
lawn in your backyard right now?
apparently, I feel like it's just like been, there's like always happening every podcast. There's like someone blowing leaves in the background or something. But all of it to say, unless it's like a very in-person job where you have to be there, like, a masseuse or something where you're physically doing something like
Hands-on
that,
stuff. Yeah.
hands-on stuff, if you are serving in a restaurant, stuff like that. But you can take a lot of those skills and do them remotely. We also have a lot of customer success. So in that sort of, I think about customer help, customer care. Think about like people who are writing in with complaints or have phone calls that they need to ask questions about a product or shipping or whatever it is, right? Like you can take skills that you've learned and apply them to just about anything. So again, there's so many people, we have in the healthcare industry who are beach commuters and say like, do you have any healthcare roles? Like, how do I transition? There's tons of different healthcare type companies. And if you have that knowledge, maybe if you've been an in-person practitioner, you can start writing about that or like talking, you can help customers who, have questions about that type of stuff. So anyway, just think about any type of role you can do on your laptop or from your phone. You can absolutely do as a digital nomad, and there are roles as well. But again, those were just in the theme for today. Those are some of the most common ones that we see.
Okay, let's bring it to number 5. We're going to bring it home with company culture.
Yes.
And all of these things just kind of build up to what determines a company culture. Also, adding in the owner of the company. The owner of the company is a huge influence, and it all trickles down from there. Like, what do they believe in?
Yeah.
So keep me on the rails here because I am so
you love this one.
Passionate about company culture. It matters so much. So the first thing that comes to mind to me is, does the company value an output from an employee, like production? Is it like a production oriented, or is it like participation or rather attendance based, right? So do they value what you create versus, or your output, your production, or do they value seeing you, right? And I see these two companies as like one that's progressive and going to do very well in the future, and the other one that's a dinosaur that's going to fail in the future, right? Because they're valuing the people that are going to fail, the company's going to fail, that have this idea that you being present equals being productive. I think they're looking at things in a very, very old school way. They're looking at the wrong numbers, right? And they're looking very, very short-sighted and kind of old school, just really not seeing things all the way through to the end for a number of different reasons. For one, when people are in person, they're not typically more productive. The average person is productive about 2 hours and 45 minutes. And that stat was created back when people were working in offices. Yeah. So that does not mean them being at a cubicle does not mean they're more productive. Them being in a cubicle does not mean they're being more collaborative. Oftentimes what happens, and I'm preaching to the choir with all you listening here, people coming by your office, distracting you all the time, going to pointless meetings, doing bar crawls after work. It's not collaboration. This is not culture. This really doesn't add a whole lot. And that's been proven time and time again. And there's a number of studies out there right now that show that people working from home work more throughout the day. They're more productive throughout the day. And on top of that, they're happier. And there's this is a huge point. Okay, so when you've got happy employees, they tend to stay with the company way, way, way longer. And this is the short-sighted issue that I have with the old dinosaurs, is they forget how much it costs to hire and train new employees. It is a terrible process. When you lose an employee, you lose tons of revenue, right? Because it takes you an average, I think, like 3 to 4 months to hire a good employee. You have to train them up and get them up to speed, which costs money, it costs output, all this kind of stuff. So when you have employees happy, they produce more and they stay longer with the company. So in reality, keeping employees happy means more for the bottom line, almost 100 times out of 100, right? Yeah. So doing things like mandating that they go to office or doing things that just make them unhappy in general means they don't stay there as long and they're not as productive. So boom, off my soapbox. please, I'll step down and let you comment.
That was a soapbox, but I think if we tie all of that back, it's a good soapbox. We love that one. We always love to talk about it, and it's really important. But if I want to tie that back into like these common themes of like what are you looking for in companies, it's often again these newer companies that have this type of culture that, as Jeff was saying, really focus on output and not like showing up. It's not about like, are you sitting at a desk and being there in person even if you're not doing anything and making it look like you are. Versus, I don't care where you are. I don't care where in the world you are. I don't care sometimes even what hours you work. Maybe we have to overlap for some calls. But like, here's your job. Here's what I need from you. If you can get that done, we don't care when you do it. We don't care where you are when you do it. And I know at Beach Commute, that is like very much what we preach and practice with everyone who works for us is like, hey, like, here's what we need you to get done. Here's what we need delivered. And if you want to do it on a Saturday night or a Tuesday morning at 5 a.m., I do not care. I don't care where in the world you're doing it from, because what we care is about like the output that comes. So if you take that and look at company culture, to me, this is like the newer, for a while, I feel like if you look at the Googles and the new tech companies, they were like, we've got free snacks and like in-house massages and a meditation room and ping pong tables. And like for a while, that was what was the culture that was attracting new talent, which was at the time very, breakthrough and different and so cool versus like the old dinosaurs that you're talking about. But to me, I would say like the next version of that are these newer batches of companies that we have on the Anywhere Atlas, which is companies that let you work from anywhere. So there's not free snacks and there's not ping pong tables because you don't even have to be in an office. So to me, the cultures you want to look for now are those ones that are like, we've started, not all of them have started remote, but probably a lot of the best ones have been that way from day one, who really focus and talk about it, which is like, we've never been in an office. We're never going to be in office. You are never going to have to come into an office. And we truly support you working from anywhere, from everywhere. And your new culture might be like, hey, we give you a stipend for co-working spaces or for, tech that you might want to have, when you bring on your travels to make it easier for you. Things like that. So to me, that's the new ping pong table, free snack, like office. And that's the kind of culture.
It's a good comparison there.
It's
I like
the
that.
next one. And that's what you really want to look for. So if this is appealing to you, if you are wanting to find a remote job, these remote companies, these are kind of like, that was, the four things before, and this fifth one leading into it. When you're looking at these websites and you're thinking about this, they're really the best ones. They talk about it and they have that on their website, and they say like, we've got people all over the globe. We've got people from all over, working all over. We're spread across everywhere. We work asynchronously, whatever those words are. But they talk about it. And often, I would say the best ones usually have started that way from day one, but are not exclusive to some that are like, okay, we've moved to that. We're trying, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And we have, so if you look at the Anywhere Atlas, usually like our five umbrella ratings, which are the best companies, they're the ones who are really prominently talking about these culture, talking about remote first, probably started this way on the website. But we do also have some 1 and 2 stars, not because they're not bad companies, because they're probably newer to it. They're not talking about it, or they're transitioning and they give you that permission, but it's like, it's not yet at the ethos of like who they are as a company. So that's what I would think about as cultures. Yeah, I'd love to.
We've got an interesting one. Out of the Anywhere Atlas, we've got Outseta. That's Outseta. I'm just going to read you a little blurb. Allow me like 30 seconds. They've got 10 bullet points in here, a huge about us page about what it's like to work with them and how they feel about having employees. It's fantastic. This is a 5-star. Or a 5 umbrella. This is exactly what we look for. Number 6, I wanted to point out in particular, says we want the whole you. When we choose to work with someone, we're welcoming the entirety of that person to our team, not just the parts of them that are convenient. We've all faced different challenges. This could be issues of discrimination, identity, mental health, physical health, anxiety, you name it. Maybe you're a parent that's going through a tough time, you're grieving the loss of a loved one, or you're just someone who doesn't quite feel at home in a lot of places. Whatever the challenges are that affect your life, that's a part of you. Your fears and your feelings are welcomed here. We'll bend over backwards to provide an environment where you feel safe, supported, and comfortable so you can do your best work. We care about making the world a more fair, fun, and equitable place for all. We believe progress will be made more rapidly by actively celebrating our differences rather than ask you to check parts of your identity at the door. This is great. I really, really love this. For that company that has that type of mindset is going to bust their ass for that company. right? If
Yeah.
you feel that welcome and that taken care of, you're going to go above and beyond. If it feels like the company is trying to control you and they want to own you, you're just going to put in the minimum. I'm just going to put in my 8 hours. I'm going to hang it up.
Yeah.
But these
By 8 hours, you mean 2 hours and 45 minutes.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, my 8 hours logged in technically, right?
Yes.
This company, you're actually going to have dedicated employees and they're not going to go anywhere because they're very, very happy.
Yeah, I love it. So I would say overall, again, you get a feel for the culture, but that's number 1 through 5 of what you can just generally look for. If we had to say, like, here's the types of companies, they are smaller, they're a little bit newer, they are all types of industries, but maybe in the kind of techie software newer company, if we had to say, but don't let that limit you. Types of jobs, we've got a lot of developers and software engineers, but not limited to that at all. Anything you can do from your computer, marketing, project management, HR, accounting, SEO, writing, all sorts of marketing jobs, like you name it. And then the companies are just a more advanced, I say more advanced, but it really is the new advanced version of a culture of be free, work from anywhere, like you're a real human with real accountability. Like we see you as a person, not just a number. And we want you to live a great life while you're working as well. And that's very apparent in a lot of those. So again, none of these are exclusive. It doesn't mean there aren't some big companies and some old companies and some cultures that don't talk about remote work so much. But like if we had to say the most, if we had a little Venn diagram of the most common companies in the Anywhere Atlas, like these are the themes that we see.
And then another example, some of the language to look for on these career pages. You mentioned it before, work from anywhere. I'm on, we've got in the Anywhere Atlas, Doist, DOIST, and on their site it says work from anywhere. Doisters, they nouned it, they nouned their name, can work from anywhere in the world. We never place restrictions on locations. This is a 4 out of 5 star. This is fantastic. Design your own schedule. That's also very, very good language. That kind of statement implies that they trust you as an adult and as a professional to do what you need to do when you need to do it, right? They're not micromanaging you. Just another couple examples of language that you want to look for.
I love that. And overall, I would say it's neat to kind of like hear these 5 themes and then like all the way down to the culture and the language. And I think it's just evolving of like the identity of what work used to be versus what it can be now, which is it used to be like work rules your life and the office rules your life. And I think about the stereotypical like 1920s, like everyone, you put on a suit and you grab your briefcase and you go to work and you come home and you eat dinner and you go to sleep. Like life doesn't have to be lived that way anymore. And so I feel like the newer companies are really treating you as a person and a human with a life and kids and family and desires and things that you want to do and hobbies that you have. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like work kind of fits into that. So it's really cool to see like the companies that are evolving. And to me, it's sort of a byproduct of, if you think about the companies that we're finding, yes, it's about remote freedom. It's about geographical freedom first and foremost. But as a result of finding those companies, you're also just finding cool companies that treat you like not even like an adult, but like a free human who has a life beyond work. And I think the companies that let you travel anywhere while you work are also the companies that are more apt to treat you this way. So to me, these, maybe it's not the prestigious big banks and big tech companies that you knew from 20, 30 years ago that are not going to be some amazing name brand on your resume, but they're going to treat you really well. You're going to have this freedom. And it's like, what's more important to you in life? I would offer you that as a coach of like, do you want to travel the world? Do you want to work for a company that treats you really well? Or do you want to be miserable and locked in one place and micromanage, but have a really great name brand on your resume? Like really, truly think about that.
Mm-hmm. I got nothing to add. Took the words out of my mouth. And if I did, I would go on another 20-minute rant. So let's not.
So we won't. But you can hear our passion behind it. Right. And it's just so neat to see these companies are popping up and we are finding them for you. So with that, you probably heard us mention the Anywhere Atlas a lot throughout this episode. So if you're not familiar with it, that is our database, for lack of a better word, that has a list of over 300 companies as we're recording this episode. It will always be growing. of the companies that we find that we've searched through literally tens of thousands of, quote, remote companies that only let you work remote from. And on the Anywhere Atlas, we have only companies that hire 100% of employees that truly give you permission to work from anywhere you want. So you can travel across your borders, across time zones, across different countries, work from anywhere. And we have ranked each of these companies, not ranked, but rated to let you know like where they lie in the scale of that work from anywhere language and that culture. But every one of them lets you work from anywhere. And it's all these cool companies that are really hard to find. Like we have searched through everything to find these over time. So if you're interested, check out beachcommute.com/atlas. Jeff, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, nothing to add. Again, check us out at beachcommute.com/atlas. And send us any questions about the Atlas at hello@beachcommute.com. We live and breathe in this thing. It's taken 3 years to put this together. We know the companies inside and out. Yeah, so if you have any questions about the companies in it or anything that we talked about in this podcast, do send us a note. Or if you have any recommendations for podcasts, we love these. We get them weekly. And oftentimes your recommendation will actually turn into a podcast. So again, write us in at hello@beachcommute.com. And we will see you again next week.